In this segment, we are taking a closer look at the Senate Commerce Committee, which is run by Texas Senator Ted Cruz. It involves everything from aviation to college sports to AI. I talked to the senator one-on-one earlier this week.
And the Commerce Committee has jurisdiction over about 40% of the U.S. economy. And so my number one priority in the Senate, this has been true for all 13 years I've been here, my number one priority has been jobs, 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 jobs.
What do you make of just all of these issues that we have seen kind of in back-to-back weeks when it comes to aviation? Of course, the deadly crash a few weeks ago, but then a Delta flight leaving the United States and going into Canada, flipping upside down. You have smoke on a plane. What do you make of these? Are you going to call for a hearing or any type of inquiry?
Well, absolutely, and one of the responsibilities of the Senate Commerce Committee is aviation and the FAA. And I will say, first of all, the deadly crash that we had at DCA Reagan Airport was truly horrific, where an American Airlines plane collided with an Army Black Hawk helicopter. 67 lives were lost that night in the worst commercial air accident in decades in the United States. One area that it is clear that we need to focus on, and that's a real priority for me, is modernizing air traffic control. You know, if you go to an air traffic control room, they're using literally 1950s technology. They're using radar and little slips of paper, and they're using floppy disks, which I guarantee if you ask your kids, they have no idea what a floppy disk is. And it makes no sense that we are monitoring millions of flights using technology from prior decades. And so it is a real priority. We will have hearings. We will be working to modernize air traffic control so that we can use GPS and the most advanced technology to keep people safe.
Another issue or topic that's kind of in your realm is AI.
Yes.
What concerns you?
Well, I tell you, Stephen, I actually think AI was a sleeper issue in this last election. I think it was one of the most consequential policy results of President Trump being reelected and Republican Senate and House, is that we're going to see government policies that encourage America to lead the world in AI.
Do you think AI still can open the door for misleading information getting out and some false information where we are at a time where, you know, people are believing things that aren't true?
So look, of course, with any new technology, there are risks. Any tool, you know, if you invent the automobile, people get run over. You have accidents and people misuse them. Anytime you have human beings, you're going to have some human beings who are criminals who choose to use a tool for nefarious ends. And the Take It Down Act addresses revenge porn, a phenomenon sadly we're seeing far too commonly, where non-consensual intimate images are put out online, and it addresses in particular deep fake non-consensual intimate images. They appeared to be naked pictures of her. They weren't real, but then sent it to all her classmates, and that's a grotesque violation of her rights and her privacy. And so my legislation, the Take It Down Act, number one, it makes it a crime to do that. You can't do that to somebody else. And the existing laws didn't make it a crime to distribute a deep fake. And so we needed a new legal regime, a new legal standard to make that a crime. And then secondly, the Take It Down legislation puts an obligation on the tech platforms to remove the content when they're notified by the victim. When the victim says, hey, that's me, and that picture I didn't consent to, remove it, that video, remove it, it puts an obligation to take it down. My legislation has already passed the Senate unanimously, 100-0. And I'm very confident we're going to move it through the House and get it passed, and we're going to put that bill on President Trump's desk to sign into law.
Greg, Senator Cruz is focusing on things like the outdated equipment and that air traffic controllers are using. He mentioned floppy disks. I'm young enough but also old enough to know what a floppy disk is. Kids these days would not know what the heck that is. But it's interesting, he didn't talk about DEI, something that President Trump said in the immediate aftermath of this deadly crash. Do you think people have just forgotten about the president's comments about race possibly being a factor in this?
Look, Stephen, I think there is a significant segment of our population that remembers and repeats everything Mr. Trump says as represented by Marjorie Taylor Greene, who wore that MAGA hat at the president's congressional address embossed with the words, "Trump was right about everything." I think there's another significant group which generally supports the president's policies, but also takes a good bit of what the commander-in-chief says with a grain of salt, i.e. Ukraine started the war and the like. As for the DEI blame game and the vaunted return to a meritocracy, I think a majority of Americans want to see some actual proof of diminished performance by so-called DEI hires before they buy into that. Perhaps it's forthcoming, but I haven't heard or seen that proof yet. Full disclosure, as the father of a disabled son, I'm actually following this issue closer than most.
Rudy, what's your take?
I got to disagree with Greg. I think there's a lot of examples of, questionable hires and not by merit. So I think that there's a lot of people who support the idea of getting back to merit-based hiring and instead of trying to fill a certain seat with a certain status and all that. Whether or not that's what's contributed to the air traffic control problem is another thing. But just wanted to say that. Let's face facts, but though the air traffic control problem, it's not a Republican problem. It's not a Democrat problem. It's a bipartisan problem, one that's been created and ignored by both parties. It was there during the Obama administration. It was there during Trump's first term. It was there the past 4 years under the Biden administration. We had a local congressman, Lloyd Doggett, who had been screaming, a Democrat, by the way, screaming for the past 4 years to help and do something with air traffic controllers, and his own party ignoring him. So based on all that, are we going to see a change? I don't know. Take a look at what happened and how the Democrats acted during Trump's speech just a few days ago. How the Democrats voted against protecting women's sports bill, and how the GOP right now, they're just all focused on cutting things. So can something be done? Should something be done? Yeah. Will something get done? I don't know. Stephen?
It wouldn't be Congress if things didn't get done. Greg, really quick, AI was a topic. Senator Cruz doesn't want it to be overly regulated. Could that bite us at the end?
Absolutely, Stephen. I know you are the youngest, albeit most talented member of this trio, and may not have seen 2001: A Space Odyssey, but I would bet the ranch that movie buff Rudy Koski has. The Stanley Kubrick film, released way back in 1968, offered the world a frightening image of what can happen when artificial intelligence goes wrong. Look, the tech savvy may be cackling at this old know-nothing geezer with 1 foot in a tar pit, but running headlong into unshackled AI is bound to have consequences, both good and bad. Call me conservative, call me a scaredy cat. I just think reliable guardrails for this new frontier of tech is the smart way to go. In other words, what's the big hurry? And if your answer is profit, well, that worries me.
All right, we'll have to leave it there.
Go with Greg
back,
if you want to survive.
We'll talk about what our issues are. We'll see you in a minute.